1984. A worker stands outside a modest house with a sold sign in the yard. The price on the sign, about $80,000. Roughly 3.5 years of what he makes. 40 years later, same worker, same house, it's still standing. The sign now reads $419,000. More than 5 times the price. He didn't move. The house didn't change. Something else did. By the end of this video, 4 moving parts built that price tag, one at a time, over 40 years, and only one of them is still a choice anyone is making today. But hold on, prices aren't supposed to stay flat. Wages rise, prices rise, that's normal. So the real question isn't whether a house costs more dollars than it did in 1984. It's whether it costs more of your paycheck. Divide the price of a home by what the median household actually earns, and you get the real measure, how many years of income it takes to buy one. In 1984, that number was 3.6. Today, it's 5. At its peak in 2022, it hit 5.8. The most expensive a typical home has been relative to a typical paycheck since this measure begins in 1984. That's the paradox this video is actually about. For different forces pushed on that ratio over 40 years. Cheap money, a shortage that never got fixed, rules that decide where builders are allowed to build at all, and a new kind of buyer that doesn't need a mortgage. Which one of these actually did this? Let's take them one at a time. And this is not an American story. Every rich country that tracks this measure shows the same climb. Since 1975, Canada's own price-to-income index is up 85%. Australia's is up over 100%. Britain's, tracked since 1987, is up nearly 50%. All three hit their all-time high within the last 4 years. Different currencies, different housing markets, different governments. Same direction, same decade. Whatever's driving this, it isn't unique to Washington. Force number 1, the cost of borrowing. In October 1981, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage hit 18.6%. At that rate, the loan itself was the obstacle. Most families simply couldn't qualify for enough of one. Then rates fell. Not for a year, for 4 decades. By January 2021, that same 30-year rate had dropped to 2.65%. Here's why that matters more than people think. A lower rate doesn't just save you money each month. It changes how much house the exact same paycheck can borrow. Run the math on those 2 rates. And a family with an unchanged income can suddenly borrow more than 3 times as much for the same monthly payment. Every buyer in the country got a bigger loan without getting a bigger paycheck. And when everyone's borrowing power rises at once, sellers don't lower prices to match it. They raise them. Force number 2, and this is the one that turns the story darker. While borrowing power went up, building did not keep pace. Between 1990 and 2007, the U.S. started an average of about 1.5 million new homes a year. Then came 2008. Housing starts collapsed. From over 2 million homes in 2005 to just 554,000 in 2009, a fall of almost 3/4. And here's the part that never got fixed. Since 2009, the country has built at an average pace about 27% below the 2 decades before the crash. Meanwhile, the number of households, the actual families and individuals who need somewhere to live, grew 55% since 1984. More buyers, fewer homes built relative to demand than at almost any point in modern memory. That gap doesn't show up as a shortage sign in a window. It shows up as a bidding war. Force number 3 is the quietest one, and researchers who study housing supply, Harvard's Edward Glaser among them, argue it's the one that decides where all of this lands hardest. Almost a century ago, in 1926, the Supreme Court ruled in Euclid versus Ambler that cities could legally divide land by use, height, and density. That single case is why most residential land in most American cities has spent the last 100 years zoned for exactly one thing: a single detached house on its own lot, nothing denser allowed. In the fastest growing, highest demand metro areas, that's not a market outcome. It's a legal one. It took until 2018 for Minneapolis to become the first major U.S. city to approve ending single-family-only zoning citywide. One city out of thousands. Force number 4 arrived last, and it's a new kind of buyer. In the spring of 2012, right as foreclosed, half-priced houses from the crash sat empty across the Sun Belt. The investment firm Blackstone formed a company called Invitation Homes. Its first purchase closed that April. Within 12 months, it had spent $4 billion on 24,000 houses and become the single largest buyer of rental homes in the country. Families didn't stop competing with other families. In some markets, they started competing with a fund that has a much bigger line of credit, no mortgage to qualify for, and no emotional ceiling on the bid. A house stopped being just a place to live. For a growing share of buyers, it became an asset, something you hold for the yield, the way you'd hold a bond. None of these 4 forces worked alone. They fed each other. Cheap money hit at the exact moment building slowed down, so more borrowed dollars chased fewer homes. Restrictive zoning meant that even where demand surged hardest, the country's biggest job markets, legal supply couldn't follow it there. And a shortage of homes for sale is exactly the condition an institutional buyer wants. Scarce, appreciating, guaranteed demand. Rates, supply, rules, buyers. Remove any one of them, and that house from 1984 probably still gets more expensive. Remove zoning specifically. The one force still fully in the hands of a city council today, and this story might look very different. So which of the 4 actually did this? Here's the honest answer. 3 of them are mostly out of anyone's hands right now. Mortgage rates are set by global capital markets, and they've already swung back up since 2022. Household growth is just demographics. People forming families isn't a problem to solve. And institutional buying, as jarring as it looks, mostly follows scarcity rather than creating it. A fund can't outbid families for homes that don't exist to bid on. That leaves 1. Zoning is local. It's written by city councils, block by block, which means it can be rewritten the same way. Minneapolis proved a major American city could do it in a single vote. Most others haven't. Researchers who study this largely agree. It's the one lever still sitting there and used in almost every city that has this problem. Go back to the house from the start of this video. Nothing about its walls or its roof made it worth 5 times a paycheck instead of 3.5. 40 years of falling rates, slow building, protective zoning, and a new kind of buyer did that. 1 decade at a time, mostly legally, mostly in public, which is exactly why it was so easy to miss while it was happening. The next 40 years aren't written yet, but at least one part of the machine is still just a vote away from changing. Every number in this video is public. The Census Bureau, Freddie Mac, the OECD, all linked in the description, so you can check the machine yourself. If you want more of these, charted straight from the raw data, subscribe. Next time, every U.S. recession since 1929 ranked by how much it actually hurt.